Hello, my friends. It looks like the dam may be breaking and the blame game is starting. So let's take a look and see what the heck is going on. Let's do it.
Hey everyone, it's Endymion, and today there has been some updates to Dragon Age Veilguard as a story that I wanted to cover here for all to see.
Man, it just seems like it this Veilguard stuff is never ending. There's always something more juicy and spicy coming out. It is incredible what a mess and what a train wreck this game is.
From websites claiming that the failure of the game must be placed on the shoulders of YouTubers, and other game directors are now calling the game bad publicly.
Oh yeah, it couldn't be the DEI ideology that's just absolutely corrupted these studios from within. No, no, no. It's us, the content creators, that is the downfall of this game and why it sucks so bad.
So let's get into it. Firstly, Veilguard isn't doing well. Some sites report it has sold 1 million copies, which regardless if that's true or not, it's still abysmal for a AAA game of this size and time frame to sell so few copies. Many smaller games this year alone have surpassed 1 million in sales with a fraction of the time compared to Veilguard. Of course, this underperformance is the fault of the players and YouTubers specifically, according to some. This brings me to a website called Aftermath.com from a journalist named Nathan Grayson. Don't harass this person, but here's the article. The Dragon Age review controversy shows how much YouTube and Twitter have poisoned video game discourse.
Of course, if it was a good game without all the woke crap that you're trying to shove down everyone's throat, yeah. Why don't you just try making a good game? And then everyone's going to be like, hey, great game. No issues.
The more you enable these people structurally or systematically, the more footing they gain until they become a default. So the argument here that Nathan Grayson of Aftermath is making that Veilguard did not fail due to its own design or premise. Instead, it failed because people like me talked about it.
That is so ridiculous. That is just ridiculous.
Well, this is disingenuous of Nathan here to say, because word of mouth has and always will be king in the world when it comes to literally anything. Unfortunately for Nathan, social media exists. Even without YouTubers covering a game, the non-binary Kunari nonsense and more would have inevitably made its way across social media either way. The injection of always diverse and trans leaders being the good guys only would also be something that people would pick up via social media too. So to say that it's YouTubers' faults is stupid, because all we have done from the get-go is simply show you what's in the game to you, the audience. Like, I didn't make up a story about this game in any of the videos that I've made if you've seen them. I always provide you concrete examples of what I'm talking about.
That's really
nice. I don't just say the faction leaders are all led by women or trans people, because I literally show you the evidence from my own gameplay that I recorded when I played the game myself. When I tell you that the writing is bad, I show you cutscenes that are pulled straight from a copy of the game itself. I am not using AI to make some weird Dragon Age cutscene to push a narrative. Anything and everything that I've shown people through my content is simply what is in the game itself. So to get mad at people for showing things in a game and then getting butthurt that said game fails is ridiculous. All it means is that this Nathan Grayson guy wanted you to blindly support things without any context. Which is interesting coming from someone who calls themselves a journalist.
But again, even if you blindly support something without context, as soon as you start playing the game, you're going to get the context. You know what I mean? So it's inevitable.
Supposed to be the medium between the audience and the corporations. But these days, games journalists are instead very tied to or completely absorbed by the said corporations that they're supposed to be here to criticize and keep accountable. And because of this, it has fallen on the shoulders of people both outside of the industry and its yellow tape, and the game's journalism sphere as well. And this is where people like YouTubers or streamers and Twitter accounts come in. Regardless of how much these people attempt to act like things are ruined by these groups, the people will find a way to seek the truth and keep others accountable. And it sure as hell isn't going to be the game's journalist, as we all know. Grayson had a lot to say in this article too. Nathan has the podcast linked in this article, but the article itself shows a written version of a section of this 1 hour and 22-minute podcast. I guess my doomer-pilled concern about all of this is that as the American Fascist Project continues to grow in power and all of these platforms facilitate these ways of talking about things, conspiratorial thinking and whatnot, do we reach a point where this becomes the default? Because I would say that right now, this is not the way most normal people talk about games or engage with them. A lot of people, as we see even based on Dragon Age's Steam numbers right now, saw this game, thought it looked cool, bought it, and now they're playing it. If you look at Asmongold's most viewed video about all of this, it has around 1 million views. 1 million sounds like a lot. But this game will probably be bought by north of 10 million people.
I tell you, this guy is really out of touch. Not to get political, but I mean, ever since Trump won the president-elect, there's been a real, it's been like a real shift in the, at least in the American way of looking at stuff. I mean, it feels like the DEI and all this woke agenda stuff, it really feels like it's flipped a little bit and that it's going away. And people, even in the regular media and whatnot, are starting to reject it. Now, whether that's because they actually believe it and they just think that it's not the right way to go anymore, it's probably more a financial flip, but it's definitely has the wind has shifted, when it comes to all this DEI stuff, and it really feels like the gaming industry is just like stuck in this bubble, and they don't realize that the world around them is changing, and they're definitely going to be left behind if things don't change.
So it's a fraction. And even then, a lot of the people who watched that video were probably never going to buy the game anyway. Already, Nathan is being moronic. Firstly, he shows his political stance almost immediately. So in his mind, the way games are going and the conversations around it, if you talk badly about games or criticize them, or don't get your information from trusted sources according to Nathan, you're a fascist. Are we really going there? People didn't like the fantasy magic game and now you're going to call them fascists over it? No wonder nobody takes you guys seriously. You can't just call everyone that doesn't agree with you buzzwords like fascist and then think it's okay.
Yeah.
Look, Dragon Age Veilguard is not Dragon Age anymore. It simply isn't. Actually, recently, because I got depressed after beating Veilguard, not because I missed playing it, but because I missed what Origin stood for way back when, I stumbled upon a documentary for Origins on YouTube. Yeah. I'll link it in the description if you want to watch it in full yourself, but here's what the Dragon Age Origins teams believed that world, this franchise, was meant to be. So in this video, you're going to see Mike Laidlaw, who used to run Dragon Age but left prior to Veilguard, speaking on the game's direction. So let's watch a clip of that right now.
When you're working with such a big creative team, everyone is coming to the table with their own style, with their own techniques.
Sure.
And as the development process goes along and you start building a world together, it becomes one language. And that language becomes something like Dragon Age Origins.
We set down to design the combat system for Origins. I think we were trying to modernize a classic. Baldur's Gate 2 has always been a reference point for us as the game that really let you feel like you were mixing classes, abilities, combinations, smart planning, and on-the-moment thinking. Yeah. So we decided to modernize that. Realistic combat fighting styles, like actually, the weight of the sword, the presence of a maul smashing into a body, all of these things are really key for us. And I think what we resulted in is something you just have to think of as like sword porn. It's for the enthusiast.
Sword porn.
In terms of looking at source material, I think you have to look at classics. The Lord of the Rings, 300, and certainly, even some of the older stuff. Go back to the really best fight scenes you'd find in the Conan movies even. This is a brutal time to be in, and we wanted to evoke that feeling. What we wanted to achieve was the sense that you could be both the general, lieutenant, that kind of commander role, as well as the guy just leading the charge. So we've put together several systems, including a tactics system that lets you fully control the AI of your characters, and of course just smart reactions to the way the enemies occur. So you kind of have that moment where you plan. You see the enemy, you're thinking like, how do I enact this grand strategy to make these characters do as much friggin' damage as I can? And then once you charge in there, the battle's just a swirling melee. gameplay. You've got positioning, moving your rogues around behind so they're just jamming their swords into kidneys. You have your warriors just holding that line, and your mages kind of holding the back line, just raining death upon your foes. So it's very in your face once you're engaged, but you always have that little moment just before where you go, oh, I know what's coming, and here's my plan. Often what you want to do is deal with the strategic impact of the equipment and the talents that you've chosen. So you want to try and mix your characters for maximum effectiveness. All characters have a sense of whether they're being flanked or whether the character's directly behind them. There's direct bonuses to everyone who's making attacks from those kind of harder to defend arcs. Even the sense of, you know, what weapon, what side are you using can affect things like sweeping attacks when you're swinging double weapons. You can certainly use barricades, walls, things like that to block incoming enemy fire, so you can actually make advances carefully under cover. And then things like elevation really do play into the mechanics as well. Even what you wear affects the tactics you're going to employ in Dragon Age Origins. The heaviest armors in the game are going to protect you, but at the same time, they're going to slow you down. You're going to be fatigued just by wearing them, so you won't be able to pull off as many special moves.
And you can hear the passion in Mike Laidlaw's voice. He knew his team was onto something here when they were making Origins.
Yeah.
And every time I watch either gameplay of Origins or a documentary on it, I'm immediately met with the raw passion that BioWare used to have for this world. This is what Dragon Age...
And for all of their games, you could tell by just playing any of their games, there was so much passion and love and dedication.
Used to be, yet the journalists of today, which have become accustomed to this baby's first mentality when it comes to gaming, you know how it goes: no sex, no hot women, no badass dudes. Just everything must be Fisher Price squeaky clean so the HR department doesn't get mad is the reason why Veilguard has actually failed. And the fact that Nathan Grayson of Aftermath says, oh, none of this matters anyways because Veilguard will sell tens of millions of copies regardless. Yeah,
Delusional.
Sorry to break it to you, Nathan, but
Yeah.
most games, especially AAA, they sell the majority of their copies within the first week or two of sales. And as of the making of this video, we're currently well over 2 weeks since the release of Veilguard, and the game has sold maybe, we don't even know for sure, but not even 1 million copies at best. And this game is never going to hit 10 million copies sold. Maybe in 100 years it could, but by then, we'll all be dead. And who the hell knows what the world will look like then? Nathan then says, so it's not negligible exactly, but it's still a niche. But as these things continue to have relatively convenient on-ramps like searching Dragon Age on YouTube and getting pulled down this rabbit hole, do we reach a point where this is the predominant mode of conversation around games? Inmates taking over the asylum or whatever. Is that where we're headed? Because we've seen this in American politics. The more you enable these people structurally or systematically,
These people, huh?
the more footing they gain until they become a default. Wow. Okay, Nathan, a lot to unpack there as well. Firstly, the market decides what becomes the predominant way things go about.
Yeah.
Whether it's entertainment or services, that's not really up to you or I to decide, but it's the majority of people. So getting butthurt over YouTube existing will do nothing but prove that you're just a salty baby who is mad that people aren't listening to your podcast enough over others. Secondly, claiming that the inmates have taken over the asylum and then combining that rhetoric by comparing it to American politics, and how one side has gained more power recently, he means Republicans by the way, means that Nathan is insinuating that Republicans should be the inmates in this, I guess, example. That they are the crazy ones, and they need to be controlled by the far superior liberals in Nathan's mind. And he is very...
Because they are all so educated and smart, and they know what's best for everyone on the other side of the aisle.
Unhappy with this because in his eyes, Republicans or conservatives should never have enough power to dictate anything.
And yet, look what happened. We took all 3 branches of government and every single county in this country shifted red after the election. So I think that tells a more telling story, and the shift that's happening in this country to a more conservative position. But this guy is he's delusional. He's totally out of touch.
And this yet again proves why these people lost the election and continue to lose their footholding in the industry and the conversation at large.
That's what I just said.
Because Nathan Grayson here, like others that I've covered in other videos, are the sorts of people who think that they're better than me or you.
Yep.
And we need to listen to them. Why? Because they can log into a website and publish articles. That's why. Because they probably went to school and then went into debt to study journalism, when all you really need in order to do journalism correctly these days is to have common sense. And don't be a dick. It's not surprising, of course, but it's always disappointing to see. In this podcast, true. Nathan has two other people with him too.
Don't be a dick.
One person is named Riley and the other is Luke. I don't know who these people are, but considering they're on this podcast together, they're obviously colleagues. The co-host named Luke at one point says this: so yes, people like Asmongold are out there making videos, but like Nathan said, what's a video like that going to top out at? 1 million worldwide among English-speaking people? That's nothing. Then Nathan says, right.
That's actually totally something. I would probably drop dead if I had a video that got 1 million views.
There are well over 300 million people in the United States alone. It's always three idiots in a room smelling each other's farts, telling each other exactly, isn't it? Look, Asmongold has a much further reach than these games journalists will have in their lifetimes, even combined. And credit where it's due, talking bad about Asmongold, that will do nothing to him. The guy has public sway of opinion in his favor. Because again, he, like other YouTubers, are not tied down by the politics that these journalists adhere to. Right. And why would I listen to these three guys on a podcast on this site that nobody really knows about over someone like Asmongold? When all these people have done so far, as I showed you, I didn't make this up or anything, these are excerpts from this Aftermath article, is say that anyone who disagrees with them are asylum patients who must be reined in, must be censored, or kicked out of the conversation completely. This is not the position of people who have the ability to debate you. All they have is their old ways that they think will still work, going against a new age that has already left them behind, and they are bitter about it.
That new age is already here. Yeah, he's exactly right.
Dragon Age did not fail because of YouTubers. It failed because they forgot the target audience and instead made the game for people who are not fans of Dragon Age. The game is very much sanitized. Even when it shows the blight, it's cartoonish looking. Big glowing red balls with veins, and the game doesn't even get dark fantasy at all really until the last 2 hours of the game. Yet when you place this up against what the original Origins team believed who the game was made for, well, I'll just let them speak for themselves. Again, this clip I'm going to show you has Mike Laidlaw, who led Dragon Age Origins, saying who the target demographic for Dragon Age was.
Designing combat isn't just about, rules and a couple of animations. It's about the entire experience as far as I'm concerned. When a player comes out of a combat, what I really want is that sense of tension and then that release of, man, look at what I just pulled off, that sense of orchestrating something. I don't want to make a game that just softballs and you're like, oh yeah, I killed that guy again. No, I want you to feel challenged and like you were rewarded for playing smart. For me, one of the most exciting parts, I think, will be the war stories, the forum posts, the water coolers. People even on the team are already discussing ways they dealt with boss X. And that's pretty cool and very, very, very rewarding because it feels like the game was one that they played and it was for them.
Yeah.
Dragon Age is a big game. And while that's a great value for the consumer, it's a giant pain in the ass.
There was a lot of long nights, there was a lot of hard crunch, but when you're working on something that you love, you don't really mind so much.
Working with our team was awesome. I mean, everybody put in 110%.
It was big. At our peak, we were around 150 people, but we really came together as a team. And it doesn't really matter anymore if you're a programmer or you're an artist. It just matters that you want to make the best thing possible.
I think one of the greatest challenges was understanding that our audience has grown up. The industry as a whole is older. It's not this thing relegated to kids anymore. And understanding that what we almost had was a mandate to make sure that the game had punch.
In some ways, we felt like we were out to prove ourselves as not only a team, but as a company again. And I don't know, that was something that was very exciting.
Dragon Age is a funny game in some respects because it's something that you're not going to understand the breadth of it and the scope of the world until you sit down and you actually find yourself in the middle of it, and then you'll be like, wow, there's so much here.
Dragon Age is a universe that has a story that spans thousands of years. Dragon Age Origins takes place over maybe a year, maybe 2 years at most, depending on how exactly you're playing it. So as you can imagine, there's hundreds and hundreds of additional stories to tell in this same space. And I think you're going to see a lot more coming from us soon.
And as you just heard, he said it plain as day. The audience has matured. They
Right.
want dark fantasy. They're not interested in baby Disney fantasy. Yet instead, the crap we got now is like if you took a gothic castle and then you wrapped it in bubble wrap and put foam where there was any hard edges or surfaces, so that nothing can hurt you or challenge you or make you feel anything. Because you're not allowed to be threatened with anything out of your comfort zone in this game. For God's sakes, the game takes place in the Tevinter Imperium of all places. Did you know that Tevinter has been well documented for being a place that practices slavery openly within its society? And not only that, but Tevinter mages also regularly utilize magic that is forbidden in other parts of Thedas, like blood magic for example, in public. Tevinter is meant to be this extremely dark and awful place for anyone who isn't the ultra wealthy or magically gifted. And if you're an elf especially, you are treated like you are less than the dirt on the ground. The Tevinter mages literally
They're treated like Republicans.
destroyed the elves by using magic that they were given access to by the old gods. Yet when you play Veilguard, none of this will come across to you because Tevinter just looks like a more bland version of Dishonored's Dunwall. With none of the edge or character that you've been promised, I hate that the game opens up with what is objectively such a cool shot of Minrathous, which is in Tevinter, like you're in awe of it. And then you're thinking for maybe a second that Dragon Age could be back, and then it all comes crashing down. And these journalists are morons because even the game directors out here are thinking that Dragon Age Veilguard sucks. Like Thomas Mahler of Moon Studios, this is a bit ago but I never got around to covering it from Park Place and it's titled, Moon Studios CEO describes Dragon Age the Veilguard writing as infantile and terrible. Here's what Moon Studios CEO and creative director for No Rest for the Wicked said about Veilguard via Twitter, and I quote, I grew up in the 80s, even as a young boy back then, I always thought TV shows were low-effort trash. Because every show back then was trying to be as politically correct as possible. Every show was about happy families.
Yeah.
Always trying to paint a perfect picture, always being careful not to talk about anything that could be in the slightest controversial. Then The Simpsons and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air dropped, and that stuff suddenly felt radical because every now and then, the writers on these shows dared to approach subjects that were real.
Yeah, I remember when I was, I was a little bit older when The Simpsons first came out, but I remember there were like parents that just absolutely, their kids were forbidden to watch The Simpsons because they thought it was just so crass and rude and like just actually evil, which, I mean, it wasn't, it isn't. But yeah, and exactly right. They upped the ante, and I mean, Simpsons is still rocking, so they're doing something right.
Whenever they tried that, it resulted in episodes that were memorable. I like to think it's because the writers managed to put some of their own experiences in there. Then in the late 90s, The Sopranos dropped, and suddenly it was clear that TV shows didn't have to be trash. That the episodic format could actually be used to give even more insight into characters, their trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
And it kept going from that point on. We saw more and more TV shows that delivered excellent drama, like The Wire, Breaking Bad, etc. Looking at games now, it's clear to see that we're apparently moving back to the Stone Age of political correctness.
Yeah.
I just watched a Dragon Age playthrough, and it's quite unfathomable how infantile and terrible the writing is. Everything feels sanitized and dehumanized. I don't know why we're suddenly thinking that this is okay. Your job as a writer is to write about things that are heartfelt, interesting, and true.
Yeah.
To draw people into that world that you created. And if this is the best that you can come up with, you shouldn't be a writer in the first place. I hate to sound so harsh because I'm sure these people had the best intentions in mind, but this is what happens when art is created by amateurs. When we have to walk on eggshells and don't dare to approach difficult subjects, you end up with a bland and bad product instead of art. Always approach writing from a human angle first. Draw from your own experiences and dare to approach subjects that might seem risky. Because often magic happens when we're okay with making ourselves vulnerable. End quote. And I agree with Thomas Mahler here 100%. I could feel the leash on BioWare being pulled the entire time I played the game myself. Yet people like Nathan Grayson at Aftermath, they truly believe that Veilguard, that should be the future of entertainment across the board. Completely sanitized, no edgy content at all, that just shoves agendas down your throat like white men bad, everybody else good 100% of the time. And then if you step out of line, you're a bigot, a racist, and the problem, instead of coming to terms with the fact that we as a people, as an industry, have very evidently lost the plot completely these past few years and then some. Why do you think that the best performing games of this year are full of violence and epicness? Helldivers, Space Marine, hell even Black Myth Wukong. Games that dared to show things or say things that other games these days aren't willing to do. And instead of celebrating Space Marine or Black Myth, they attacked them, called them games that appeal to conservatives. At one point, they made a video like I think 2 or 3 weeks ago about how Rock Paper Shotgun released an article that was titled "Why Play a Fascist? Unpacking the Hideousness of the Space Marine." And that article, this way of thinking that everyone I disagree with is a fascist or racist and everything I like is objectively good and should become the norm, is why this industry is dying. Right. Even IGN recently had an article titled "The Blockbuster Game Bubble Has Burst." And then they unironically put Concord and Suicide Squad in the main image too, proving exactly that they don't know what they're talking about.
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah. Okay. They were being serious, but they're actually being ironic.
Blockbuster games are selling aplenty this year. Black Ops 6 had the biggest release in COD history. Space Marine 2 broke 4.5 million copies. Helldivers 2 has likely crossed over 10 million at this point. It was at like 8 or 8.5 million just a few months ago. Then you got stuff that also did really well. Tekken 8, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Metaphor Refentizo, Persona 3 Reload. Recently, Dragon Quest III Remake is like sold out all across Japan, for example. You have Black Myth Wukong. Should I even keep going? Funny enough, all the games that did the best this year are either a very small handful of Western games or the overwhelming amount of Asian-made media. So the only bubble that has burst is the liberal talking points within these games. Concord had pronouns, diversity, and zero white characters, and it brought nothing new to the table in terms of being a multiplayer FPS. And now Firewalk and Concord are dead for good reason. Suicide Squad lost $200 million and then some and ruined the entire Arkham franchise.
Yeah, and the Concord game is not only dead, the studio that made it is dead as well.
While also making all the women amazing and all the guys idiots on purpose. Flops big time.
Well, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know, it reminds me of like, I guess in the 90s, like a Nickelodeon and Disney. It was like all those shows, I mean, they're kid shows, but they started like showing all of the adults and like the parents, especially the dads, as just absolutely moronic idiots that can't function in real life. And the kids, you know, are the smart ones and they know what's going on. And unfortunately, that mentality of I mean, it's a show, but it's like those kids have now grown up and they still think that they just know everything, right? So I think the gaming industry is a little bit like that. Anyways, let's get back to it.
No surprise there at all. It's like I always say, these websites, whether it's IGN, Rock Paper Shotgun, or this Aftermath, they never actually tell you why things are the way they are. You can say that Dragon Age Veilguard failed because it pushed agenda and had tons of stupid identity politics in it and sanitized everything and ruined the lore before it. And these websites will go, was it released at the wrong time? Is it YouTubers' fault? Has the blockbuster bubble truly burst for good? I guarantee you, had Veilguard been like Origins, we're talking dark mature themes, gore, lots of taboo topics like previous games, and had actual player choice,
they would have said, oh, this game is so transphobic, it's racist, it's horrible, it's totally sexist.
We would have seen likely the biggest game of the year, apart from maybe Helldivers or Black Ops.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that is true, where he went there. If this game was more like the traditional Dragon Age, yeah, it would have probably been Game of the Year.
Up 6, and I mean that. And then these websites like Aftermath with their podcasts will try to say, surely these games are failing because of YouTube chuds running hate campaigns, right? You dummies. It's because you and the people you align with keep making content for nobody. Like, how stupid can y'all really be? If you're selling something and nobody is buying it, you can't think that it's the customer's fault. Come on.
Right.
Oh, nobody wants to buy my...
No, it's the marketing's fault. No, it's just because your product is not good.
Pizza. These customers must be racist. Never mind the fact that the only flavors of pizza I have are things that nobody wants. Like, I don't know, salmon on a pizza, or I have like rat meat on it or something gross.
Right.
You can't.
When I was in Japan, they had it was basically, it looked like a bread. It looked like it looked like a French loaf, like a French bread loaf, you know, like a, I don't know, thicker than a baguette, but the thing was, it was made with charcoal, like actual charcoal. And so the bread was completely matte black. I mean, you couldn't get blacker. And I remember going up and asking the person, and I was like behind the bread counter or whatever. And I was like, "Yeah, can I get the charcoal bread?" I think it was actually charcoal squid bread. I think it might have had squid in it, but I can't remember. But it was definitely charcoal. But anyways, the guy was just like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, can I get the charcoal bread?" And he's like, "Are you sure you want the charcoal bread?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I want to try it. Like, it looks intriguing, you know?" And he reluctantly sold me the charcoal bread. And I tell you, it was actually way good. It looked really kind of gross, but it was good. But yeah. But the point is, it's like consumers know what they want generally. And if they don't like something, they're not going to buy it, you know? And it's I don't know.
Be serious, guys. You can't blame customers for not wanting to buy your objectively bad products if you keep giving people bad things on offer. Like, just look at how these guys think on that Aftermath website. Here's one of the things the co-host Luke said. Right, and that doesn't include English-speaking people in Europe and the rest of the Anglosphere. I don't think it's something to be worried about as a discourse-shaping trend. It's more just a bummer for that type of content on that type of medium. It's going to go on its own journey, and during that time, people are going to be put off it. People might stop watching that kind of content and look somewhere else. They might look on TikTok or on blogs like Aftermath.com site. Bro, nobody is going to come to Aftermath.com over YouTube in 5 years or 10. You guys you won't even exist in 10 years.
Right.
This is the kind of crap that you're spewing. Let's be real. Then Luke says, in terms of Asmongold's reach on Dragon Age, and by the way, this article was published right before Trump was elected as president. So these guys still believed that they were the majority. Just listen to this.
Yep.
Obviously, the political situation in the United States shows that lots of people can, if they're subjected to long and hard enough, but on a global basis, on a normal person basis, a lot of people will eventually be like, I think this guy's effing weird, or who cares? It's Dragon Age, or not everything has to be a conspiracy and a political gesture. I'm more optimistic than other people are with that stuff, but it's more of a YouTube problem than a societal problem. They need to sort that out.
It's completely opposite. And I can't believe that guy is not smart enough, or just he's too isolated to see that.
So what do you want, Luke of Aftermath.com, for YouTube to censor and remove everybody that you disagree with personally? All of these idiots.
Yeah, that is the Marxist way.
The Hassan Pikers, the Destinies, or these Aftermath guys, they all think the same. My points are better than yours, I deserve to be heard, and you should all be forced to listen to my nonsense, and if you don't like it, you're a fascist, racist bigot. These people are clowns, dear viewer. The world is changing for the better right now. America's finally being led by actual patriots who genuinely care about the future of their country. And idiots like these are seething because they're realizing that nobody, not even the silent majority, believe or agree with them on anything.
They're irrelevant, and their power has now been taken away, or will be taken away. But yeah, these guys are irrelevant, and they realize that, and so they cry about it like little babies.
Gamergate 2 has absolutely cooked the industry this year, and they will try their damnedest to attack us more. Dude, I can't wait for the Game Awards. It's going to be so cringe. I can't wait for the presenters to use the award show to spew their political biases on stage. By the way, when the Game Awards happens, I will be live streaming so that we can all laugh together.
Oh, nice.
But this is the absolute state of the industry right now. Dragon Age fails. It's just YouTubers' fault, apparently. It's everyone except the people who took 10 years to make the game that There are so many clowns in the gaming industry that they should all get together and just open a circus at this point. At least then they'll stay employed longer than they will if they cling to these dead websites that nobody listens to or watches anymore. The legacy media in this world is dying for a reason because nobody trusts them. They're all fake, they're all idiots, and they deserve the failure because they spend decades of their lives spewing misinformation and talking down to the players or customers and people, calling them everything under the sun. You truly believe that your politics and positions were the right way, and now you're finding out that your opinions and positions are worth less than a used copy of Veilguard right now.
Well, you know, you reap what you sow. So yeah, it's karma, man, coming back in full force.
You reap what you sowed. You can keep.
That's totally what I just said. That's so funny. We're on the same wavelength, buddy. All right.
Crying all you want that YouTubers are taking your jobs, but ultimately, you just did this to yourselves.
Yeah.
And if you want someone to blame, get up, look in a mirror, and think long and hard about what you're doing and what you've said.
Yeah, I mean, it's like somebody like touching a hot stove and getting burned and then blaming the stove for being hot. You know what I mean? It's like these people just are so clueless.
And how you've been abandoned by the general audience for being absolute morons on no one's dime but your own. And Dragon Age Veilguard sucks, so just go play Origins for God's sakes. Thank you for watching, subscribe, thanks to my supporters, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.
All right. Well, I think we're making progress. I think the gaming industry has not that outer shell of, hatred or whatever. It hasn't broken yet, hasn't crumbled yet, but I think it's about to. You know, the blame game, I mean, that's like kind of the first signs of things starting to shift. And I really hope that the gaming industry, at least in the Western civilization, it will catch up to just how people, I don't know. There's definitely a shift, at least in America, shift to the right, shift to normalcy. And I hope that the gaming industry can catch up. All right. Well, anyways, it was a great video. I appreciate everybody watching, and thank you. And if you enjoy my reaction, please consider subscribing, and please leave your comments down below. All right. Love you all, and regardless of who you are. And well, until the next video, I hope you guys stay safe. And we'll catch you later. Okay. All right. See you. Bye.
I got nightmares in my head. I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear.